per game, 7th in the league in scoring. Here's the league's 3rd leading scorer in Caitlin Clark. Spinning on Beckers. They go one-on-one, and Clark wins the matchup.
You know, Pat, today I watched her.
Just when the critics thought they had her completely mapped out, she pulled off a performance so overwhelmingly dominant that it sent shockwaves through the entire landscape of modern sports. Everyone knew the expectations surrounding Caitlin Clark were unprecedented, but nobody in their right mind predicted the sheer destruction she was about to leave on the hardwood against a fierce Dallas squad that came in smelling blood. For months, the loudest voices in sports media had been building a very specific narrative, waiting for the moment the pressure would finally crack her. But on this night, she didn't just survive the spotlight. She snatched it, shattered every defensive scheme thrown her way, and delivered an absolute masterclass that officially flipped the dynamic of professional basketball forever. To truly understand the magnitude of what took place during this legendary performance, you have to look back at the intense storm brewing right before the opening tip. Indiana was navigating a brutal, high-stakes regular season stretch where every single possession felt like a playoff battle. The target on Clark's back hadn't just remained. It had grown exponentially larger with every single week. Opposing teams weren't just trying to win games against the Fever. They were playing with an added layer of aggression, making it their personal mission to physically test the high-profile newcomer. Dallas entered the arena with a clear, unapologetic blueprint. Bully her at half-court, hit her hard on every screen, use heavy physical guards to disrupt her rhythm, and force her into costly turnovers. The atmosphere inside the arena was thick with anticipation, and every fan in the building could feel that this wasn't going to be just another game on the schedule, but a brutal test of resolve. When the game finally tipped off, the tension was palpable, and Dallas immediately tried to set a punishing physical tone. They picked her up full court, clawing at her hip, trying to bump her off her driving lines before she could even cross the half-court emblem. For the first few possessions, it looked like Dallas's overwhelming physical approach might actually work, as they contested every pass and bumped her on off-ball cuts. But elite players don't panic when the game gets tight. They simply elevate their processing speed to a level nobody else can match. Clark took one look at the heavy pressure, recognized the overcommitments, and decided it was time to put on a show that would leave the opposing coaching staff completely helpless. The scoring avalanche started with a single, lightning-fast sequence that caught everyone off guard. Off a broken play, Clark gathered the ball nearly 30 feet away from the basket, didn't hesitate for a single microsecond, and launched a deep logo shot that snapped through the net with absolute perfection. You could visually see the air get sucked right out of the Dallas defense in that very instant. That single bucket opened up the floodgates, and what followed was an absolute offensive clinic. She began executing a masterclass in scoring versatility, pulling up off-screen and rolls, knocking down contested step-backs over outstretched hands, and carving up the paint with lightning-quick floaters when defenders aggressively closed out on her jumper. By the time Dallas realized their initial defensive coverage was getting completely vaporized, Clark was already in total control of the game's rhythm. She was pouring in points from every single spot on the floor, scoring in transition, drawing fouls on hard drives, and making the opposition look like they were moving in slow motion. When the defense tried to play her tight on the perimeter, she used her lethal crossover to create space, pulling up for mid-range daggers that left her defenders stumbling backward. The Dallas bench could only watch in growing frustration as their carefully calculated game plan dissolved into total chaos, unable to find a single player on their roster capable of keeping her in front. Yet, as breathtaking as her 29-point scoring explosion was, it wasn't even the deadliest weapon she brought into the arena that night. The moment Dallas realized they could no longer single coverage her without getting burnt, they started throwing panic double teams at her the second she crossed half court. And that is precisely when Clark elevated her performance from great to completely historic. Instead of forcing bad shots into heavy traffic, she weaponized the defense's desperation against them, putting on a playmaking display that left commentators gasping. She began dropping surgical, highlight reel passes to every corner of the floor with unbelievable precision. Clark racked up 10 jaw-dropping assists, reading the floor 3 steps ahead of the defense like a chess grandmaster. She was delivering full-court overhead outlets that hit teammates in stride for uncontested layups, threading needlepoint pocket passes through 3 defenders in the pick and roll, and throwing no-look skip passes across the court to wide-open shooters waiting on the wing. She elevated every single player wearing an Indiana jersey, turning baseline cutters into lethal scoring options, and completely breaking the spirit of the Dallas defense. Every time Dallas tried to mount a run or trap her near the sideline, she effortlessly picked them apart with a pass that exposed their open rotations. Naturally, when pure skill and tactical defensive adjustments completely failed to stop her, the game took a dark, volatile turn toward heavy physical friction. Frustration began to overflow on the Dallas side as the lead expanded and the home crowd roared with every single play. Defenders started delivering extra shoves after the whistle, throwing hard fouls on her drives to the basket, and getting right in her face with intense trash talk to try and rattle her composure. The physical intensity reached a boiling point during a heated sequence, where a hard foul sent her crashing down to the floor, causing the arena to erupt in boos and forcing the referees to step in before tempers flared out of control. In past matchups, that level of targeted aggression might have thrown off a younger player's focus or derailed the team's momentum. But Clark didn't flinch for a single second. She got right back up, dusted herself off, stared down the opposition, and casually walked to the free throw line to sink both shots with stone-cold precision. She used their aggression as absolute fuel, turning the hostile environment into her personal proving ground. Rather than getting pulled into petty altercations, she responded by scoring on the very next possession and flashing a cold glance back at the opposing bench that let everyone know she was in complete control of the arena. As the fourth quarter reached its climax, the game turned into a masterclass of closing out an opponent under pressure. Dallas made one last desperate push, hitting a few back-to-back shots to cut into the deficit and quiet the crowd. But just when it felt like the momentum might swing, Clark stepped up to deliver the final daggers. She took control of the ball, drained the clock down, and hit a step-back 3 right over the fingertips of a closing defender that completely shut the door on any hopes of a comeback. The bench jumped to their feet, the arena erupted into absolute bedlam, and the game was officially iced. When the final buzzer sounded, the stat sheet revealed a reality that left the entire sports world in total awe. Finishing with 29 points, 10 assists, and a commanding victory, Clark achieved a level of statistical dominance that very few players in history have ever touched, let alone during their opening chapter in the league. She became one of the youngest players to ever register a 25-plus point and 10-plus assist double-double, shattering historical rookie benchmarks and completely forcing analysts to rewrite their projections for her career trajectory. The sheer efficiency, poise, and control she displayed proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that she isn't just surviving against elite competition. She is actively dominating it. Beyond the raw statistics and the viral highlights, this massive victory marked a total culture shift for the entire Indiana Fever franchise. Before this historic run, the organization was struggling to find its identity and lacked the killer instinct needed to close out tough games against physical opponents. But watching Clark put the entire team on her back, absorb intense physical punishment, and systematically destroy a talented Dallas roster completely transformed the locker room's confidence. Her teammates played with a relentless swagger, feeding off her energy, running the floor with purpose, and locked in on defense like never before. This single win didn't just add a positive tally to the win column. It announced to the rest of the league that Indiana is no longer a soft target, but a legitimate threat that nobody wants to face in a high-stakes series. The broader impact of this performance stretched far beyond the arena walls, igniting a massive wave of reactions across social media, sports television, and fan communities worldwide. Former legends of the game broke down her film in absolute disbelief, praising her elite passing vision, her unguardable deep range, and her uncanny ability to process complex defensive coverages in real time. Fans flooded every platform with highlights of her logo three-pointers and mind-bending passes, while former critics were forced to eat their words live on air. The overwhelming consensus was clear. The debate over whether her game would translate to the highest level was officially over, buried under a mountain of historic stats and unbelievable highlights. What makes this game so unbelievably special isn't just that she scored 29 points or handed out 10 assists. It's the profound way she managed to dictate every single aspect of the contest, from start to finish. She controlled the pace, manipulated the defense at will, stood tall against physical intimidation, and elevated everyone around her while making it all look completely effortless. It was a complete performance that mirrored the play of legendary icons who defined whole eras of basketball history, serving as a massive wake-up call to anyone who thought her ascent was just a temporary media trend. As the season moves forward, and defenses continue to throw everything including the kitchen sink at her, this iconic performance against Dallas will be remembered as the exact moment the tide permanently turned. She didn't just win a tough basketball game, she sent an unmistakable message to every defender, coach, and critic in the world. Caitlin Clark is operating in full GOAT mode, breaking boundaries, breaking defenses, and rewriting the record books with every single step she takes. And if this is what she's pulling off right now, the rest of the league should be absolutely terrified of what comes next. The dramatic narrative surrounding this specific game against Dallas will undoubtedly go down as one of the defining chapters of her legendary journey. The sheer volume of pressure resting on her shoulders prior to tip-off was staggering, with critics waiting around every corner to pounce on the slightest mistake. Every missed shot, every turnover, and every loss had been analyzed under a microscopic lens by commentators eager to declare that she had hit a wall. Yet, when the lights were at their brightest and the physical play was at its most aggressive, she delivered a performance that didn't just meet the astronomical expectations, it completely obliterated them. Looking closely at the tactical film from that night reveals an even deeper level of brilliant basketball intelligence that standard box scores simply fail to capture. Dallas attempted to execute a highly complex defensive scheme specifically designed to take away her favorite pulling spots and force her into uncomfortable sidestep reads. They tried switching guards on perimeter ball screens, dropping their bigs into deep coverage to protect the paint, and sending late help defenders to flash into her sightlines. But Clark dissected each of these looks with the speed of a high-powered computer, identifying the exact weakness in their setup before Dallas even finished setting their feet. If the big dropped back, she pulled up from the logo. If the big stepped up, she dropped a delicate dime over their heads to a rolling center for an easy dunk or layup. This relentless adaptability on the floor completely shattered the spirit of the Dallas coaching staff, who were seen frantically throwing their hands up on the sidelines as play after play crumbled before their eyes. When a player can score from 30 feet out with defender hands in their face, drive through traffic to finish through hard contact, and simultaneously lead the league in high-value assists, traditional basketball defenses simply cease to function. Dallas was left picking between two equally catastrophic poisons: allow her to drop 40 points single-handedly, or double-team her and watch her hand out 15 assists to wide-open shooters who were knocking down corner threes all night long. Furthermore, the emotional resilience she displayed during this clash provided a masterclass in psychological toughness. The Dallas roster was packed with experienced, highly physical veterans who knew every dirty trick in the book to try and unseat a star's rhythm. There were subtle extra shoves on off-ball screens, deliberate foot placement on her jump shots, sharp elbows thrown during box-outs, and a constant barrage of intense trash talk aimed directly at her head. Yet, despite the targeted physicality, Clark never allowed her emotions to compromise her execution. She didn't complain to the officials endlessly or lose her cool on the floor. Instead, she used that aggressive energy as pure rocket fuel, turning up her speed and hitting even crazier shots right in the faces of the very players trying to intimidate her. That mental fortitude is precisely what separates elite talent from true generational greatness. Plenty of athletes possess incredible physical tools, lightning speed or smooth shooting strokes, but very few possess the unshakable mental composure required to carry the weight of an entire sport on their back, while being physically targeted night after night. By refusing to break under the immense pressure, she earned the absolute, undeniable respect of veterans across the entire league, who previously doubted whether she had the grit to survive the physical grind of professional basketball. The ripple effect of this 29-point, 10-assist performance has also completely transformed the business and cultural landscape of professional sports as a whole. Ratings for the broadcast shattered previous viewing records, with millions of fans tuning in specifically to see if she could pull off another magical performance against a tough Dallas opponent. Ticket prices for the game skyrocketed on secondary markets, rivaling the cost of high-stakes playoff matchups in major male sports leagues. Every arena she steps into now feels like a major cultural event, packed with thousands of young fans wearing her jersey, holding signs, and screaming at the top of their lungs every single time she touches the basketball. Inside the Indiana Fever locker room, the impact of her dominant play has been nothing short of revolutionary. Teammates who previously played with uncertainty are now stepping onto the floor with a fierce, unwavering confidence, knowing that as long as they run their lanes and execute their cuts, Clark will deliver the ball to them right in their shooting pocket. The overall speed of Indiana's offense has accelerated dramatically, turning them into one of the most electric, fast-breaking, high-scoring units in the entire league. Opponents who used to view Indiana as an easy win on their schedule are now forced to spend entire game prep weeks stressing over how to contain an offense that can put up 90 points in the blink of an eye. When you step back and look at the historic trajectory of basketball legends across different eras, performances like this one serve as clear line-in-the-sand moments. It was the night where potential fully transformed into undeniable, dominant reality on the court. She proved that her game isn't just a product of high usage or favorable system design, but a rare combination of generational skill, supreme basketball IQ, and a killer competitive mindset that thrives under the most intense conditions imaginable. She destroyed the defensive game plan of a fierce opponent, lifted her franchise to a massive, statement-making victory, and solidified her status as an absolute powerhouse who is actively redefining what is possible on a basketball floor. The debate over her standing among the game's all-time greats is no longer a conversation reserved for the distant future. It is happening right now, after every single game she plays. Analysts, former players, and fans alike are running out of adjectives to describe the historical madness she is putting on display week in and week out. If she is already capable of shattering elite defenses, dropping 29 points and 10 assists, and carrying her franchise to huge victories against physical opponents so early in her professional career, the rest of the sports world needs to prepare itself. The era of total dominance isn't coming somewhere down the line. It has officially arrived, and Caitlin Clark is sitting firmly on the throne, leaving everyone else scrambling just to keep up. As the season marches toward its inevitable high-stakes postseason climax, every remaining team on the schedule is watching this game tape with absolute dread. Dallas threw their best physical defenders, their most aggressive double teams, and their toughest mental tactics at her, only to be completely dismantled on national television. The blueprint to stopping her simply does not exist, because every time a defense tries to take away one aspect of her game, she seamlessly shifts into another gear and beats them in a completely different way. Whether she's pulling up from 30 feet out, driving through heavy traffic to score at the rim, or dropping surgical no-look passes to open teammates, she remains fundamentally unguardable.